Well, healthcare is a vital concern to all of us living here, but it also has become one of the largest employers in the Upper Peninsula. A major provider of those health services and the largest player in that business, UP Health System Marquette, is here to talk to us this morning. We'll talk with the man responsible for leading that organization, and it starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, a major change occurred at Marquette General Hospital in 2012 when the former community-owned nonprofit hospital was acquired by Duke LifePoint, a for-profit joint venture of Duke University Health System, one of the country's leading academic health systems, and LifePoint Health, a leading healthcare company that says it's dedicated to making communities healthier. Renamed UP Health System Marquette, the hospital has gone through several management changes, but is now moving forward under the leadership of Brian Synott, who was named CEO in July of last year. Brian is our guest this morning. Welcome to the Ryan Report.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Good to have you with us. You know, I know you grew up in Minnesota, so this kind of winter isn't a surprise for you.
No, not at all. Actually, it feels like I'm finally home again.
Okay.
I've spent some time down in the South, but then also in the Midwest, and went back to the South, and now to be back up this far north, back to my home neck of the woods. It feels good.
Okay.
Last night's snowfall, that was good. It was good to see that kind of snow again.
We need some snow. You attended St. John's University in Collegetown, Minnesota, but your bachelor's degree was in education and coaching. Did you have some different career ideas to start out?
Very much, actually. I come from a long line of teachers and educators, and so I had some nurses in my family, and so I was kind of familiar with healthcare, but really it was my mom who inspired that in me, wanting to help people. And so I was going to follow in her footsteps. I was going to be an English teacher and maybe even get into guidance counseling and do exactly what she did, which is work in an alternative education school. And so she worked with students who, for a variety of reasons, couldn't make it in the regular school system. So she'd work with these kids and help them move on to get their diploma and go on to have productive lives. And that had a huge impact on me, still does. And so I was planning on doing that, and then I student taught, and I came in encounter with teenagers and realized pretty quickly that probably wasn't for me for the next 40 years of my life. So
how did healthcare eventually become the chosen career?
Yeah, well, it took a little bit of my dad. What he did, he was a turkey farmer, and so I grew to appreciate at a pretty young age what it was like to be a small business owner and some of the things we'd think about and he had to think about. And so when I combined, the two, my dad with kind of small business, and my mom really wanting to help people, thankfully I met someone who changed, my life when I was just doing some networking, trying to figure out what would combine those two very strong parts of me. And he was a retired healthcare administrator. Okay. And at that time, I thought really hospitals really just had accountants, that it was doctors, nurses, and a whole bunch of people. But from a leadership perspective, I wasn't as familiar with what it entailed, and he allowed me to go and see his son, who was an administrator in St. Paul, and shadow him for a week, and I was immediately hooked. I was able to go and round on a floor where they had an oncology wing, and a lady who wasn't going to be with us much longer, and I was able to go and hold her hand and say hi to nurses who were caring for her, and I just thought, my gosh, if I could actually be a part of this is absolutely what I want to do. And for me, it just clicked, and so
you did, and you've worked at several hospitals in leadership positions.
I have.
Most recently, before coming here, you were at a Duke LifePoint Hospital in North Carolina, I believe.
I was at Moriah Paramedical Center in North Carolina, just outside of Durham, and so I was very close to Duke. I got very familiar with Duke and the LifePoint relationship, and a gentleman who was a great mentor and friend of mine had a large part in recruiting me to join Duke LifePoint and come and help out Moriah Param, and then also to come up here.
The transition from nonprofit to profit, from community owning the hospital to, a large company owning the hospital, there was kind of an adjustment period. There were some changes, maybe a little rocky road for a while.
Yeah.
Do you feel that adjustment is being made now and the community concerns are being resolved?
I do. It's in progress. I do. I feel like there's a lot of things that could have gone better. I've listened a lot to the community, and I've gotten to know and trust a number of people in the community and our medical staff and our staff. Some of the things that weren't handled real well, and part of that was messaging and really telling our story and what we're doing. And That's a big part of what we're focused on right now is where we can go, understanding there's been some missteps. And honestly, with the amount of change that's happened here, I'm the 4th CEO in 5 years. That's a lot of change. And no matter what, even if all of those transitions went really well, that's still a lot of change and creates a lot of anxiety. And so what I've tried to do my first 5-6 months now is really just calm that down, reassure everyone where we're going, where our future is headed, and how we're going to do that together, and really approach it from a partnership perspective, both with the community, our medical staff, and our staff. One of the things that I talk about all the time when I get a chance to be with our teams is that, this badge, I don't care, what it says, as far as a title. If you're wearing a badge, in our organization, you're part of the team, and you're a leader here, and I'm counting on you to put patient care and service first, and entrust that you'll, anytime you put on the badge, no matter what's going on in your life, that you realize you have a profound opportunity to make an impact in someone's life. And that's what inspires me, and I hope to inspire that in everyone I work with.
I have to think, you're in a business where you deal with life-saving every day, not you directly, but the people who work for you.
Yeah.
You're also the CEO of the largest employer in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
Do you think about those things when you go to work in the morning?
Absolutely, Don. I'm very well aware. It's such a great community. I mean, I love Marquette already. My wife and I fell in love with it immediately when we came here last summer. And the people here are great. They're smart, well-educated, and passionate and connected to the hospital in a way I really haven't seen, even in smaller hospitals that I've been in previously. And so I think that's fantastic. I love that. And so while that energy may have been going in a more negative direction due to some of the things that had gone on, that's still a very engaged energy that I wanted to work with very badly, because our responsibility is profound as far as providing strong jobs for the local economy, making sure that we're good partners for all the great businesses that we do have here in our local economy. And so our futures are tied, and I definitely recognize that. So I'm excited to be here in the community and hopefully help chart a really bright future for us.
Okay, I want to talk more about what you're doing, where we're going, and we'll do that in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after this break. Our guest this morning is Brian Synott. Brian is the CEO of UP Health System Marquette. Let's talk about what you're doing. I know you're going through a visioning process. And what kind of a vision, how is the process working?
Yeah, well, very organic, actually. I thought what will work much better than me coming in here and saying, I know what's best for this organization, this community, this region, is really to reach out to some key stakeholders. So I started with our physicians, spent 5 hours off-site with 21 of our physician leaders and our Board of Trustee chair, Judy Watson-Olson, and got through some really good, really positive ideas there where there's been their frustrations, and so those are very real, and we're able to talk about those and move forward and then turn the page and, okay, where should we go? What should success look like for us in the future? That was very helpful, but I didn't stop there. That was really phase one. Then we moved into phase two, and I spent a couple days off site with our Board of Trustees really talking about what does this look like? Here's what our physicians had to say. What does that look like? How quickly can we execute? What does this look like over a 3 to 5 year horizon? Great info, taken from that. But then I didn't stop there. I really wanted to talk to our staff. And that was one of the most fun days I had had in my first 60 days. I spent a half a day with 40 of our frontline staff from all the different departments in the hospital. And it was a fabulous and fun day where they were able to speak very clearly about what we need to do, how we need to do it. And it was such a great reminder to me again that people know, trust your staff because they know what's working and what's not. So I got great insight into what we need to do from a leadership perspective from that. And so that was able to shape our vision. And the reason that I felt like we needed to do that is that throughout the community, medical staff and others in the hospital, I didn't feel like there was something aspirational we were striving for. There was a common direction. We wanted to be great, but what does that mean? Are we going to be a really nice community hospital with a nice service line or two? Are we going to be a regional provider of health care? And is that what we're striving for? So there was not a common direction or aspiration there. And so I felt that was very necessary to get, input from some key people in the organization around what we need to do and what that looks like.
Can you begin to define that mission or that vision now?
I can. We answered a couple key questions. And one is to become a regional provider of healthcare. That's something that's very clear that our teams want, our board wants, our doctors and staff want, is to be a regional provider of healthcare. So that's going to take shape over the next few years. There's a lot going on in healthcare across the UP, heavily influenced by legislation coming out of DC, and some of the ripple effects. I think we're going to see some things happen in the next 3 to 5 years because the marketplace is pretty disrupted right now. But clearly we want to be that regional provider. We provide tertiary level care for people in need across the UP, and we've designed a plan to help deliver that more effectively, more efficiently across this broad geography. And so, but that's going to take some time, going to take some additional capital investment. Going into markets where we have a limited presence now to see if we can help partner with the healthcare teams there to provide a higher level of care. Another piece of it was becoming nationally recognized for our transformational change, recognizing that things have not gone well the last 4 years. We can acknowledge that, but our vision, our strategic vision, is to be recognized on a national level for our transformational change over the next 3 to 5 years. So that at that point in time, people are asking us, how did you do that? How did you make that happen? And then also we connected it back to our UP communities, and that was the one common factor that I found anyone could agree upon. We might disagree on what tactic we're going to do or what service we're going to put as a priority or the speed at which we're going to get everything done. But one thing that was a uniting factor was that everyone loves the UP, and that Yoopers taking care of Yoopers resonates with everyone. And also a recognition of the role that we play in the community, that we've got to be strong, we've got to be vibrant. If we grow, we help our local economy grow. And so we've put forth a plan to do just that.
Is that vision something that every employee can look at and understand where the hospital is headed?
Yeah, we're just finishing that now. And so we rolled it out. We went through a series of what we called culture days, where we had all 2,400 employees come through formal training. It was mandatory. It was a 4-hour session that we put together to not only share our vision, where it came from, very organic, but then also roll out new standards of performance. So what does that culture look like? And so it's really based on service and quality and making that a priority for anyone, like I said, who wears a badge to provide outstanding quality and service. Because in today's healthcare world, you've got to be great. I mean, that is, if you were going to read between all the lines and all the fluff, really the mandate now is you've got to be excellent at what you do, or you could risk getting smaller or going away, for a lot of hospitals right now. For us, we have a very different future. We have the new $300 million hospital coming online. We have all the opportunity to be that regional strong provider, but really our first steps first, and that's re-engaging our community right here in Marquette, re-engaging and re-inspiring the confidence in their local provider and hospital that I think has waned a bit in the last few years.
We have only a minute left in this segment, but the whole changing healthcare situation, not to get into the politics of,
Sure.
of the Affordable Health Care Act,
Sure.
but the uncertainty must make it very difficult for anybody in this business.
It really is, regardless of title, whether you're a physician, you're an administrator, you work in EVS or environmental services. It has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. The pressures on the industry are profound. We didn't used to see hospitals filing bankruptcy or closing really for 40, 50 years. From the 40s and 50s in the US, we didn't really see that happen. It was only if your major industry went away. If you were a critical access hospital and you were supported by mining primarily, and then the mine closed, then they'd go away. Now you're seeing hospitals close at an alarming rate, and actually it's not, regardless of your political bent, it's really a directional thing that we're going now in the United States around that. There's a pressure to reduce the number of hospitals in the United States, and they knew that when they wrote the Affordable Care Act, that around 20% of the hospitals in the United States were thought to be at risk of closure in 10 years post implementation, and so we're tending to be on that track.
Got a lot more questions for you. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after this break. Once again, we're talking this morning with Brian Synott. Brian is the CEO of UP Health System Marquette. What kind of services can people expect to see in the future? What will be the key services that your hospital will be providing? I know right now you're very active in the area of heart and vascular care and cancer care. Will those continue to be?
Absolutely. You think the big three will probably remain heart and vascular care, cancer care, and our neuroscience program. We have three just really stunning programs. You know, growing up where I did, we got excited when we got our first primary care doctor. I grew up in a town of 1,200 people, and so to have the level of health care, the depth and breadth of expertise and the clinical acumen you have here for doctors is really a jewel. And so we've got some really strong services here. There are a number of others that are very good, but those three are clearly going to be our regional programs that will focus on, in addition to orthopedics. I mean, orthopedics, we have a great orthopedic group here, and they've already done a lot of outreach across the UP. And so I think really those four will be the four that are big, but we have an outstanding, you know, family medicine program, we have the residency program, and we have all kinds of great things to be proud of here with our organization.
You're building a new hospital. Things are going well, I understand?
They are. They've had the gift of great weather.
Yes,
and
until
so
now.
Yeah, right. They got a little snow last night. But so far, they always get mad at me when I say this, but they're slightly ahead of schedule.
Okay.
And so that's great. We are still targeting November 2018 for our move-in date. So we're very excited about that. I mean, it's a world-class facility. I've been so excited taking a look at it. I've been very focused on my messaging, not being focused as much on the new facility, because I know there's a lot of things that we need to take care of, you know, just internally from a engagement standpoint, re-engaging our staff and our doctors and our communities. But at the end of this, you know, next year and a half, we've got a really special place that we're going to be walking into.
How do you go about, not you specifically, but an organization designing a hospital that's going to work in the future with the way things change?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, right now you're seeing a couple things happen. More things are being able to be done on an outpatient basis, and so you don't have quite the need for as many inpatient beds as we once did. People who get in the hospital tend to be a little bit sicker now than they were before. And so, you know, you do take that into account. We have planned for growth, for regional growth. So we have built this hospital with the ability to grow with that in mind. But you do need to be mindful of where medicine's going, because it is changing quickly. And so we've taken some things into account for that. We tried to design it to be much more efficient, more patient-centric, so that patients don't have to walk and figure things out quite like they do in our current campus. Yeah. You know, it's not unusual. We have a campus that's been here a long time and we've built on, and so some things just aren't quite as connected as you'd like. And so we've tried to combine like services with like services, so it's easier on the patient, easier on our staff, and hopefully we can build in some efficiencies with that, but certainly being focused on outpatient care too.
And of course there is concern, at least in the local community, about what will happen with the former buildings.
Yeah.
Is that still under consideration?
Oh yes, it's a hot topic. It's something I'm engaging in at least weekly, at least once a week right now, because people certainly want to know. It's a big building, and there's a lot of space there. So how do we best use that as a city? And that's something I'm really engaging people across the city to help us decide and what we do with that, what would be best, who would be interested, what services might we provide. That's something that will remain, you know, a hot topic for the next 3 to 6 months for sure, because everyone would like to know so we can start planning for that.
Okay. Well, I know you've done some surveys of the Upper Peninsula, and we have only a moment left, but what are you finding about the perception of the hospital today in that perception survey?
Yeah, we did just complete that perception survey. Really what was great for me is it provided me data that really supported what I was thinking and what I'd been hearing from people. And that's that there's the perception that there were some questions around quality, you know, that maybe weren't quite as strong as they should be for the quality of medicine that we do provide, quality care we do provide. There's a disconnect there between what the community perceives and what we actually do. So that's really on, you know, myself and my team to get out and educate the public and do things like this, you know, with you. So I'm really grateful you were able to have me on today to talk about. This is an organization we should be very proud of. We have great people working very hard every day to take great care of people. Again, it doesn't matter what your badge says. We have people who are absolutely committed, doing great things every day. We need to celebrate those and talk about those. One of the things that really differentiates some of those great organizations that we hear all about that have these great brands, I've been fortunate enough to work in them for periods of time. And the distinguishing factor for them is they have things happen that aren't great. There isn't a perfect hospital in the United States. But what they're great at doing is celebrating what they do well and celebrating their wins. They hyper-focus on any errors or any things that do go wrong, but things still go wrong at those places too. Unfortunately, I believe that's where we've lost our way a bit around really telling our story and the great things that are happening here every day.
Okay, I love your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Hospital seems to be in good hands. Glad you came in and talked to us this morning, and I'm sure we'll have you back in the future.
Thank you so much. I'd love to come back.
Okay, I'll be back with more on the Ryan Report after this break. Well, since our topic of conversation this morning was health care, let me share a couple of quick stories. When I look back, I often think about when I was a kid and the family doctor made house calls. That's right. He showed up at the house with his doctor's bag with a stethoscope, tongue depressors, and assorted medicine. That's all it took to put us back on the road to recovery. We're probably not going to go back to those days. Contrast that with a recent instance when I had a medical episode, which is all behind me now, but it resulted in my arriving at the hospital in an ambulance, spending time in the emergency room, and an overnight stay in a hospital bed. During the initial hours of that visit, I was whisked off to several rooms for various tests, saw 3 different very good doctors I had never seen before, a couple of them known as hospitalists, and was watched over by a lot of caring nurses. By the end of the day, I was up and walking the halls, and at one point looked out the window. What did I see? But a patient arriving by helicopter. We've come a long way since the doctor showed up at my house with his medicine bag. When you've been around for a long time, the changes can be amazing. I'll be back in a minute. It's about time for us to wrap it up for another week. It was great to have Brian Sinnott with us this morning to talk about developments at UP Health System Marquette. And thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great day and that we can look forward to seeing you again next Sunday morning.